Hello, hello, hello. Hola, hola, hola. Welcome to a new episode of the Yoga for All Bodies video podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest for you. Susan Kjesbo is the founder of Yoga for Bones, a specialist in the benefits of yoga for osteoporosis. And Susan believes that yoga is good for all bodies, but not all yoga is good. Yoga should be safe for the conditions and the body you have today. She's also educating and sharing amazing tips in her Instagram account, Yoga for Bones. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much, Natalia. So nice to be here. I feel honored.
I'm so happy you're here. What you do is amazing. It's new, at least for me. When I found you, it was like, oh, this is super needed. That's why.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you're here today and that we are able to share your knowledge, some tips with the people from the Yoga for All Bodies video podcast.
Great. Thank you.
So I would like to know, how did Yoga for Bones born?
That's a great question. So it's been a long journey, and I personally have been a longtime practitioner of yoga myself. I do also have osteoporosis. I have a family history of it. I didn't have good nutrition when I was growing up. I went through stressful periods of my life, and I also went through early menopause. And a lot of those things contribute to the quality of your bones. So I personally have osteoporosis. And during some of my yoga training, I'm a yoga therapist, by the way, and through my training, found out that it was really contraindicated for someone with osteoporosis to do forward folding. And as you know, with yoga, there's a lot of forward folding in yoga.
A lot. Every time, yes.
A lot, right?
Yes.
So when I first found out about that contraindication, it was quite hard for me. And I can personally say that my ego was inflamed and thought, how could I practice yoga if I can't forward fold? What is this going to mean for my own practice? And through time and grace and patience, I have now embraced it fully and really feel and really want to share that news that you can still have a full practice without forward folding and keeping your body safe for the body that you have today. So I want to still be practicing yoga when I'm 95, 100.
Absolutely.
So I really am honoring my body, the one that I have right now, and trying to do what I can for it. So to answer your question, how I got to where I am now, I became a certified yoga therapist, and then I went on to study more deeply the aspects of yoga for bone loss. And I really did a lot of research and found through my research, Lauren Fishman. He is a doctor and a longtime yogi, practiced in the Iyengar tradition. And he is located in New York. And so I'm in California. I went to New York and studied with him and eventually got certified in his methodology. And he did a study and is now doing his third study, actually. But he did a original pilot study, and it was showing that yoga was helpful for building bone density. And then he went on to do a larger, more full-fledged study, and I was in that study. And
ooh, nice.
What we did was 12 poses, same poses, and we tried to do them every day and hold the poses with intention as well as good alignment to really engage the muscles and to stimulate the bone building process. So
fascinating.
After I got trained in his methodology, I used to teach before COVID in 3 studios in Orange County, and I had several bone strengthening classes per week. But I found that my students, because I would only teach in that particular studio 1 day a week, they want more because our bones build slowly. And if you just did a yoga practice 1 day a week, it's good, but it's not going to increase your bone density quite so fast. So we really need to be diligent about it, right?
Taking notes, yes.
So we need to have a consistent practice. Not always easy, but that does make a big difference. So I decided actually several years back to do a website that people could go to and be able to practice when there wasn't a class, or maybe they're going on vacation or traveling and they were away from their studio and could access some guidance. So
that website is amazing. It has a lot of amazing information. So can you give us the website right away?
Yes. So it's very simple. It's www.yogaforbones.com.
Visit it now. Yes.
Thank you. So I developed a website, and I wanted it to be more than just the physical aspects of yoga. Certainly I have quite a large video library of classes that someone can take for building bone safely through the poses that Lauren Fishman has been working with. So it's kind of based on his research that he's has done and is still doing. And then I also added a couple of other sections which I really felt were important through my yoga therapy schooling. And one is stress reduction. The stress is really hard on our bones. What it does is increases our cortisol levels in our body, and that creates a process that's can be detrimental to your bones. So in my stress reduction section, I have video classes on meditation, pranayama, and restorative yoga. So all three of those things are, I feel, a really helpful way to lower somebody's stress level. Some nice tools.
Yes.
And then I have another section on nutrition. And I'm not a nutritionist, but through my own personal journey have found that nutrition is really important, and the health of your gut is also important. So if your gut is off, then you're not going to really be absorbing those nutrients that you put in your body. So
super important. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I have developed the website, and I'm just so passionate to share the knowledge with anyone who'll listen.
Yes. I mean, when I found you, because I took one of your workshops.
Yes.
And first, the name, I was sold. Yoga for Bones. Oh, yes. I love names that are direct and do you know what to expect. So yes, I was sold. And then I took it, and the variations that you offer for the poses, they were genius. I remember the first time I was like, when you offer chair pose at the wall. You don't see that often. Mm-hmm. And it's so, you're working. If you're doing it at the wall, you feel it.
Yes.
You're not just hanging there resting. No.
Right.
So for me, that was amazing.
Good. Well, the statistics are quite staggering, quite frankly. 1 in every 2 women over the age of 50 will experience a fracture due to bone loss. So that's quite a high number. A lot of people don't even know they have bone loss happening in their body. We typically get a DEXA scan. That's what they call the scan that determines where your bone density is. Typically, you will get one at about 50 for a baseline. But people of all ages can get osteoporosis, quite frankly. And I think it's important, like we said earlier, to practice safely. So some people that have bone loss are elderly, and being able to do chair pose at the wall, if you don't have great balance, you can still really work the pose, right?
Yes.
And not be so concerned about being too wobbly in the pose. And
and would you say that yoga for bones is beneficial only for people that are experiencing bone loss, or anybody can benefit from this practice?
That is a great question. So it really is a condition that starts early on. We build the most majority, or we build mostly all of our bone up until about the age of 25, 30, around in that area. So for young adults or young people who are active and eating well, they're going to really be building the best bones that will take them throughout their life, right? So I think it's an important practice. Certainly if you are young, you don't have bone loss, the practice is very engaging and active in the sense that you're working. But in my classes, we don't forward fold, and we're extremely mindful about twisting. Twisting is one of those areas that's a little controversial. Some people say it's all right if you have osteoporosis to twist. Other people say not so good. So if you have an elongated spine and you come into the twist mindfully without rounding your spine, Lauren Fishman feels it's really beneficial because the muscles are pulling on the bone. But I think anyone could certainly benefit from the classes. Just know that you wouldn't get the forward folding that you might get in a different class, but they are active classes. And I've had people take them that don't have bone loss, and they've mentioned that wow, that was a hard class.
Yes, I can say that. And in the same line, what would you say are the difference between, let's say, a hatha class and a yoga for bones class? What's the parallel?
Yeah, so the poses are all poses that everyone knows, I mean, in a hatha class, depending on the teacher and the level of the class, some teachers might put in a chaturanga, for instance. I don't do that kind of fluid movement in my classes because it actually has been studied and shown that it takes a bit of holding to activate the bone building process. So my classes are similar in the fact that the poses are the same, like we do Warrior 2, Warrior 1, Triangle Pose, Cobra Pose, a lot of the poses are all the same, but we don't really flow in and out, and when we get there, we hold the pose. So the magical time is anywhere between 12 and 72 seconds. And in that time zone, it helps to send messages to your body to activate the bone building process and get your body, is like, oh, we need to start building up bone here. There's a stress being put on the bone when the poses hold that in that duration of time. Lauren Fishman feels 30 seconds is about a nice time zone to try to get to. Any time past 72 seconds, your cells are kind of tired. So the messengers stop kind of sending the message. So people are sometimes surprised at how long that is, right? If you're used to coming into a pose, taking a breath or two and coming out and coming into another pose, then holding 30 seconds can seem long. A lot of times what I'll do in my training is I'll have people get into a pose like Warrior 2, and I'll say, start counting your breaths, and I'll time them for 30 seconds and then tell them to stop, and then have them realize that that's how many breaths it actually takes to get to 30 seconds.
Yes. I remember when I was in your workshop, we also did Camel Pose with a chair, a support. And that one felt long. Felt long, but in a good way. Because when you're holding also the poses, you notice it in your body. You also regulate your breath. And you also connect with yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of benefits.
A lot of benefits. And I love that chair, camel pose in the chair, because I really think you can access the extension in your upper spine sometimes a little easier meaning in the sense that you actually feel it and can connect into that area than if you're doing it on your knees, down on your mat, because you've kind of taken that lower half of your body a little bit out of the equation, and you really can open up. And that part of our spine is an important part for your posture.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you completely. I think yoga is just so amazing in the fact that it connects us in with our own self. We gain better proprioception, that's knowing where our body is. We gain better interoception, that's knowing more internally what's going on in our body. And just really through those two things, we're able to love our body better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And what would you say that it's the process for a student that comes to yoga for bones?
Mhm.
In months, in weeks, they will notice some difference, or you have to test it with medical exams?
Great question. Bones build super slowly and they're silent. So a lot of times we don't know we have bone loss until we fracture something, right? Somebody falls down, breaks a bone, then their doctor may say, oh, you should get let's test your bone density, depending on the age and what caused all of that, But if you come to class regularly, and that's the key, I think what people will find is they will feel their body's getting stronger. And when our muscles are stronger, our bones are getting stronger as well. You don't feel when you have bone loss, like you can't feel it unless you have a fracture or something going on. So you don't also feel the fact that, oh, my bone density is getting better. You would definitely need to get a DEXA scan, that's what it's called, and then do it again at another time period. They only test your bones once every 2 years, and that kind of gives you an indication of how slowly bones build.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, right. So time is of the essence, right? You can't wait around since it takes a little time. But I think just to touch on what you said earlier, I think, through that process, you're also connecting inward, you're getting, you're just feeling mentally and physically better in your body, which allows us to enjoy life better.
Yes. And what would you say that are the most important tips that all the yoga teachers should know if they receive a student that tells them, I have osteoporosis?
That is a fantastic question. And I really want the word to get out. Yes. Because I was actually never warned from teachers. And I understand there's a lot of conditions out there, some more prevalent than others. But there is a lot of forward folding in yoga. And so the tips I would say would be this for teachers. If you have a student that is over 50, remember the statistics, 1 in every 2 women over 50 will fracture a bone due to bone loss. So not saying that everyone over 50 has bone loss, but it is fairly prevalent. So if someone specifically even says, then I have osteoporosis, then as a yoga teacher, I think it's really important to encourage them not to round their spine, not to come into a forward fold, maybe only come in halfway with a long neutral flat back, which is a great modification for that. And you can still, like you said, be really working a lot in that. In fact, when you come into the full forward fold, a lot of times you aren't working all that. Your body's just kind of let go at that point. So I think the forward folding probably is the biggest thing. And then I think the second area I would be to just be very mindful in twisting.
Yes, twisting, it's a whole world.
Yes,
really.
It is.
Because especially if you're teaching public classes, you don't have and now that we are teaching online,
right,
you don't have the time to go person by person. It can be super tricky.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the forward folding is the biggest thing. Twisting is the second thing. And then I think depending on the class that they're taking, if they're fairly new to yoga, they're not going to be doing a headstand most likely. But there's some other poses that are just really not, in my opinion, safe for someone with bone loss. I don't personally do headstand anymore. I don't do plow pose. I don't do poses like crow pose. Crow's pose would be good for my forearms and wrist, which is an area that does fracture. When we fall, we tend to put our hands out, and a lot of times we'll fracture a wrist. But to get into the pose, you typically are rounding your spine. So it's not only where you are at the end part of the pose, it's what happens when you get in and out of it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This information is gold because it's true. When we do the 200-hour teacher training, we basically learn how to move the body. But there are so many layers in what you offer. That's why I love your niche. This is your niche, and I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And can you mention some of the poses that are included in this program? It's called program for
Yeah. Well, I have developed my own teaching style based on the poses that Lauren Fishman came out with. And he did I call it the classic series. It's the first set of 12 poses that he used in his large study. That was the study that I was in. And since then, he's come out with a second series and a third series. But the classic series really is what I'll tell my students. If you learn those 12 poses, it's a beautiful home practice. It's it's a complete practice in and of itself. You can do it and feel amazing and know that you've gotten a complete, full, well-sequenced yoga class. So the poses that are in that series are triangle pose, warrior two, side angle pose. This is a tricky one, twisted triangle. And it's tricky because that's quite a difficult pose. And the student really needs to be instructed, especially if they're new in yoga, so that because we're coming into a half forward fold and then rotating our spine. So as you come into that half forward fold, you need to pause there, really lengthen out, and then rotate mindfully and slowly. But that pose is excellent for targeting the hips and the spine based on if you think of the architecture of the pose, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And then moving down to the floor, there is bridge pose and Cobra pose or locust. There's Marichyasana, two seated poses that are twist. And a lot of times when we twist when we're seated, it can be difficult for the student, especially if they are tight through the backside of their body. They need to sit up on height. Those are two great poses that can be also done in a chair or a prop like a block at the wall that you're standing on and rotating towards the wall with your body in a standing position, because it's really easier in a way to keep that length in your spine when you're standing, right? Than if you're seated and your pelvis is tucked under. So Marichyasana and Arta Matsandrasana are the two seated twists. Supta Padangusthasana, which is the strap over the sole of your foot when you're down on your back. Supta Padangusthasana 1 and 2, meaning your leg is straight up in the air and then out to the side. And then Shavasana, of course.
Oh, super
really
important.
He put it in every sequence, every series of poses. He has Shavasana in there. So Shavasana is so important for us to not skip, especially as we are on online yoga, right? We can turn off our camera and leave. We need to take those few minutes, close our eyes, let the benefits of the practice integrate into the body down to the cellular level. And it's good because the more we practice Shavasana, the easier it is for our body to move into that state of rest quicker, because it knows it, it understands it, you know.
Yes. I experienced that during the pandemic. I have the runners, the students that run. I'm sure that they have a watch nearby and they say, now it's time, and they
Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier than in real life.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So don't do it.
Don't do it. We need that. We need it actually more now than ever. Now more than ever. A lot of times I will start my classes actually with that down regulation, because it helps to get the student into that mindset of being in the moment where they are in their practice.
Yes.
For that day. Yeah.
And it's only, I like to stay in Shavasana at least 15 minutes.
Oh, I can't wait to come.
But at the end of the day, you notice at the minute 3 that something changed. You are soft in your body, you're being held by your mat. So you
Yes.
only need some minutes to do it.
Yeah.
So do it.
Yeah. Well, Herbert Benson was at Harvard, and he coined the relaxation response. And he studied it, and it showed that it takes approximately 10 minutes to activate the relaxation response. And what I tell my students, Natalia, is that I think right now it takes longer, right? The more stress we're under, the longer it takes to get to that part of, of that down regulation. And it's so important because all of our internal working systems work off that, our brain, our bodies, and our bones. Our bones are affected by stress, so we need to make sure we keep our stress levels in check.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you a question that we ask all the guests.
Okay.
For all bodies? No, it's nothing. Yes, trust me. Yoga for all bodies is about variations, about giving options to the students. And of course, using props as tools for success. So I would like to know, what is your favorite prop and why?
Oh, I love them all, as you probably know.
Yes.
Let's see. What is my favorite prop? I'm going to guess something that I'm going to say something that I probably would have surprised me maybe, but I'm going to say a chair. And I'll say a chair because I think a chair is one of those props. And moving to online yoga has really made me realize this. Pretty much everyone has a chair. Not everyone has a bolster. I love my bolsters, but not everybody has a bolster. So I think a chair is one of those universal props. And I think it makes yoga accessible for everyone. So you don't have to always be seated in the chair. You could be the entire time, but you could also stand up and use it to help you with balance. You could use it to help you in lengthening. Maybe you're trying to get your leg a little higher up and you're able to put your foot on the seat of the chair and find some stability and height that way. So I think the chair would probably be my favorite.
Love it. These days also for me is the chair.
Yes. Yes, good.
And it's also when we're back in the studios, it's actually a prop that you can continue to use because you can wipe it.
Right. Easier than the straps and the blocks.
Yes.
I will say that I think props are brilliant. You know, we are all different in our shapes, our sizes, our proportions. Not everyone can reach the sole of their foot. And, sometimes people struggle so hard to do that it becomes not safe, And I think the props really are brilliant to be able to open up that accessibility to everyone and allow their practice to meet their needs.
Yes, love it. And finally, how can people find you? Give all the information, promote yourself.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Well, it's like you said, pretty simple name, Yoga for Bones. So you can find me at my website, www.yogaforbones.com. You can, through that website, go in and send me an email. You can also find me on Instagram. And on Instagram, I'm the same thing, Yoga for Bones. I actually have 2 Instagram accounts. My other one is Therapy Yogi because I am a yoga therapist. And so I kind of decided when I started Yoga for Bones to really keep that super specific to working with osteoporosis. And you'll find information on that Instagram account about poses and the benefits of poses. Maybe this pose is great for your hips or your femur. Or maybe it's a nutrition tip or a down regulation of your nervous system tip, that kind of thing. On my therapy site, it's a little broader because I do have clients that come to me that have conditions other than osteoporosis, and I like working in that also. So I'm kind of a dual
extra wisdom.
dual yogi. But yoga for bones is the easiest way because I have a tricky last name to spell. So I want to keep it simple. Yeah.
Awesome. And something else you would like to share with the audience of this video podcast?
I would say honor your body, honor where you are in this day, stay safe so that you can have a longevity in your practice. Right?
Amazing.
Let go. I will often say, when we're in the studio, leave your ego in your shoes at the door.
Yes.
So we can feel better and live better in our bodies.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing with us this amazing information that is super needed. I know all the yoga teachers are going to be really grateful for the information you shared today. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are so welcome. And I so appreciate you being so open and doing this platform to try to get the word out on all different things. It's really amazing. And your light and your energy really shines through in everything you do. It's always fun for me when I'm on Instagram to see your posts pop up and see that light shining through. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you're watching this video, like it, share it, subscribe, because we need to share the message that everybody can practice yoga. Thank you one more time, Susan. A big hug.
You're welcome. Yes,
See you
same
soon.
to you.
See you soon.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.